Sarah lived in a small, dusty settlement surrounded by tall trees and wide-open fields. The sun rose each morning, casting a warm glow over the land, but for Sarah, the beauty of her surroundings was often overshadowed by the darkness of her home life. She was married to a man named Thomas, whose anger seemed as fierce as the storms that rolled through the mountains. His harsh words and rough hands left bruises on Sarah's spirit and body. Every day felt like a battle. Thomas would return home after long days of work, tired and irritable. It didn't take much for his temper to flare. A misplaced dish or a quiet moment could spark an explosion of rage. Sarah learned to keep her head down, to be invisible in her own home, hoping to avoid another confrontation. But no matter how hard she tried, the fear never faded. Despite her struggles, there was a flicker of hope deep inside Sarah, a longing for freedom and peace. She remembered stories whispered among the women in the settlement about those who dared to leave their abusive lives behind. Each tale filled her with both fear and determination. What if she could escape? What if she could find a new life for herself away from Thomas's grasp? One cool evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of pink and orange, Sarah made a decision. She felt her heart pounding in her chest as she quietly packed a small bag with essentials, some food, a few pieces of clothing, and a treasured locket that held a picture of her mother. As she slipped out into the night, she felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. The unknown stretched ahead like an open road. As she navigated through the shadows of trees and underbrush, Sarah's mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead. Would she find safety? Would anyone help her? The wilderness felt both frightening and freeing all at once. With every step she took away from her old life, she felt a little lighter. The weight of abuse began to lift from her shoulders. Little did she know that soon she would encounter someone who would change her life forever, a gentle warrior whose understanding heart might finally lead her toward hope and healing. As Sarah stepped into the cool night air, the weight of her decision pressed upon her like a heavy cloak. The stars twinkled above, illuminating her path, while the sounds of the settlement faded into the distance. Fear churned in her stomach, but each step forward filled her with a sense of hope. This was a moment she had long dreamed of. She was finally taking control of her life. The darkness around her felt both comforting and terrifying. It wrapped around her like a protective shroud, masking her from the world she was leaving behind. As she ventured deeper into the wilderness, she could hear the soft rustle of leaves and the distant calls of night creatures. Each sound reminded her that she was no longer trapped within four walls, but instead surrounded by the freedom of nature. Sarah's mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead. Where would she go? How would she survive? She had heard tales of other women who found new lives beyond their pain, stories that fueled her courage. Each tale painted a picture of strength, resilience, and hope. She wanted to be one of those women, to break free from Thomas's shadow and embrace a brighter future. With every step, Sarah imagined what that future could be like. Perhaps she would find a small community where people welcomed her with open arms. Maybe there would be friends to help fill her days with laughter and lightness instead of fear and sorrow. The thought made her heart race with excitement. However, doubt crept in along with the exhilaration. What if Thomas came looking for her? What if she was lost forever in this vast wilderness? The fear gnawed at her like a tiny creature burrowing into her thoughts. But Sarah quickly pushed those worries aside. She had already faced enough fear in her life. As dawn began to break on the horizon, painting the sky with pastel shades, Sarah felt renewed determination fill her spirit. She knew there would be challenges ahead, but for the first time in years, she felt alive, truly alive. This journey would not only lead her away from Thomas but toward discovering who she truly was. With each step forward, Sarah embraced the promise of hope as bright as the morning sun shining down on a new day. As Sarah ventured deeper into the wilderness, a mix of excitement and uncertainty filled her heart. The cool air nipped at her skin, and the crunch of leaves underfoot was a constant reminder that she was truly away from her old life. But the thrill of freedom was quickly overshadowed by doubts and fears. She had never spent a night alone in the forest, and every rustle in the bushes made her jump. The first night was tough. She found a small clearing to rest, laying on the ground with only her thin blanket for warmth. The sounds of the forest, an owl calling, the rustling of small animals, made her feel small and vulnerable. Sleep eluded her as thoughts of Thomas crept back into her mind. Would he come looking for her? Did he even care? She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to brush away the dark memories that hovered like shadows. As dawn broke, painting the sky with soft pinks and oranges, Sarah pushed herself to rise. She reminded herself that today was a new day, filled with possibilities. But as she began to walk again, hunger gnawed at her stomach. The anxiety of finding food weighed heavily on her. She remembered some tips from the women in the settlement about edible plants but felt unsure if she would recognize them. As she navigated through trees and bushes, each sense heightened. The smell of earth and fresh pine filled her lungs, but every snap of a twig felt like a threat, reminding her of what she had left behind. She took deep breaths, reminding herself that the wilderness also held beauty, crystal streams, bright flowers, and sunlight filtering through the leaves. Yet, her journey was not without its struggles. After hours of walking, fatigue set in, and she stumbled upon a rocky area. Her ankle twisted painfully as she lost her balance, sending a jolt of fear through her. Curling up on the ground, she whispered to herself, feeling defeated. Thoughts slid in of how easy it would be just to turn back to Thomas. His anger was painful, but it was known. But as she looked around at the vibrant greenery and flowing water nearby, she shook her head. No. This was not a moment to give up, this was a moment to fight for her freedom. Determined to stand firm on her own 2 feet, Sarah refocused on her journey. Each struggle only fueled her desire to move forward. With grit and resilience in her heart, she would forge ahead into whatever awaited her. As Sarah continued her trek through the wilderness, the exhaustion began to weigh heavily on her. Her legs felt like lead, and her stomach ached with hunger. She had been moving for hours, and the once vibrant landscape seemed to blur into a haze of greens and browns. Just as despair began to creep in again, she stumbled into a small clearing where sunlight streamed through the trees, illuminating the space with a warm glow. In that moment of stillness, she suddenly felt someone watching her. Startled, she turned to find a tall figure standing at the edge of the clearing. He was a native warrior, his presence commanding yet calm. His long hair flowed gently behind him, and his deep brown eyes held kindness that immediately eased some of Sarah's fear. "Hello," he said softly, his voice smooth like flowing water. "You look lost." Sarah hesitated but soon realized that she didn't sense any danger from him. "I am," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm trying to escape." The warrior stepped closer, concern etched on his face. "You've ventured far into the forest alone," he observed. "It is not safe for one without knowledge of these lands." His words were laced with understanding rather than judgment, and Sarah felt a weight lift off her shoulders. Here was someone who understood fear, someone who could help her. "I don't know how to survive out here," she confessed, tears welling in her eyes as vulnerability washed over her. "I just wanted to be free." The warrior's expression softened further as he moved closer and offered her some dried meat and berries from his pouch. "You need nourishment," he said gently. "You are strong for choosing this path, but you will need more than strength alone." Taking the food gratefully, Sarah felt warmth spread through her heart along with gratitude toward this stranger who had appeared when she needed help most. "Thank you," she said earnestly. "I am Takoda," he introduced himself with a slight bow of his head. "Let me guide you through these woods safely." With hope rekindling in her heart, Sarah nodded and accepted his offer. As they walked side by side into the depths of the forest together, it felt as if a new chapter was beginning, one filled with possibilities and compassion instead of fear and loneliness. She had found not just aid but also comfort in Takoda's presence, a gentle reminder that even in dark times, light could emerge unexpectedly. As Sarah walked alongside Takoda, she felt a sense of peace begin to replace the turmoil in her heart. The gentle warrior moved with grace, his connection to the land evident in every step he took. It was clear that he belonged to these woods, as if nature itself whispered secrets to him. Intrigued by his calm demeanor, Sarah found herself wanting to know more about the man who was helping her navigate this new and uncertain path. "Can you tell me about yourself?" she asked, curiosity brightening her voice. Takoda smiled softly and nodded as they continued through the dappled sunlight filtering through the trees. I grew up in this very forest, he began, his deep voice steady and warm. My people have lived here for generations, learning how to coexist with nature. We believe that everything around us, the trees, rivers, and animals, has a spirit. Respecting those spirits is important to us. Sarah listened intently as Takoda spoke about his childhood memories of running through the grasslands with other children, learning to hunt, fish, and gather plants from elders who taught their ways. I was always curious about everything, he reminisced. The elders guided me not just in finding food but also in understanding our connection to the earth. They taught me kindness toward all living beings. His words contrasted sharply with Sarah's own experiences. Growing up in a world dominated by strict rules and duty, she had never known such freedom or lessons of compassion. In her home, there was little room for kindness, instead, it was filled with anger and fear. The thought stung like an unexpected breeze. Takoda noticed her somber expression and added gently, "We all have our journeys shaped by our experiences. Yours has made you strong enough to seek freedom." Feeling a wave of vulnerability wash over her, Sarah nodded slowly. "I feel lost most days," she admitted quietly. "That's part of finding oneself," he reassured her. "Even in loss, we can discover who we are at our core." As they moved deeper into the wilderness together, Sarah realized how much she longed for a life filled with respect and harmony, a life much like Takoda's upbringing in the forest. With each passing moment, she felt encouraged by their differences and drawn toward his peaceful nature. It was a reminder that healing was possible and that perhaps her journey would lead her toward more than just safety, it might also guide her toward finding herself amidst the wild that surrounded them both. As the days passed, the bond between Sarah and Takoda deepened, creating a bridge of understanding that began to fill the spaces left by their respective pasts. They traversed the wilderness together, sharing stories under the watchful gaze of ancient trees that seemed to listen in silence. Each tale they exchanged was like a thread weaving their lives closer together. One evening, as they sat by a small fire crackling softly in the twilight, Takoda gestured toward the stars lighting up the sky. "In my culture, we believe each star is a spirit watching over us," he shared thoughtfully. "When I was young, my grandmother taught me to look up and always remember those who came before us." Sarah stared at the constellation above and felt a spark of connection as she remembered her own childhood spent dreaming of adventures far from her troubled home. "I used to dream about being free, going on grand adventures," she confessed, her voice tinged with both nostalgia and longing. "But I never thought it was possible." Takoda smiled, his eyes reflecting the glow of the fire. "Dreams can guide us to our truth," he said. "You are living one now." Encouraged by his words, Sarah began to share her own story, the fear she had endured at Thomas's hands and how she had felt trapped and powerless for so long. It felt empowering to speak openly to someone who listened without judgment. Takoda's expression remained gentle and understanding as he absorbed her experiences. "I cannot imagine what you've been through," he replied softly. "But know that strength resides within you like the roots of a mighty tree." They spent hours talking like this, laughter mingling with tears as they opened up to one another. Sarah discovered more about Takoda's teachings, the ways he learned from nature, respecting each living thing and striving for harmony with the world around him. His wisdom inspired her. He was not just a guide through the wilderness but also a guide in learning about resilience and peace. Through their conversations, Sarah began to see flickers of hope where despair had once settled in. She no longer felt entirely alone. She realized that sharing their stories allowed them both to heal from past wounds and embrace their journeys ahead together. As twilight turned into night, they sat side by side, silent yet connected by an unspoken bond, a mutual understanding that both had chosen paths filled with bravery and hope as they stepped forward into an uncertain future together. Their companionship blossomed amid adversity, signifying that even in darkness, light could be found through shared stories and healing hearts. As the days turned into weeks, Sarah and Takoda's bond continued to flourish in the heart of the wilderness, yet they soon faced challenges that tested their connection. One afternoon, while foraging for berries, they heard a commotion nearby. Intrigued, they cautiously approached to find a group of settlers from Sarah's community gathered around a campfire, their voices raised in frustration. "Look! It's that settler woman," one man shouted, pointing at Sarah. "What is she doing here with him?" Fear washed over Sarah as she recognized familiar faces mingled with anger. She had left her old life behind but now felt it pulling her back. "We should go," she whispered to Takoda, her heart racing. But Takoda held his ground, standing tall with a calm demeanor. "Let them speak," he replied softly. "Understanding comes from listening." The settlers exchanged glances filled with suspicion and disdain. "You don't belong here, woman," another man yelled. "You've betrayed your own kind by walking with a native." Sarah felt a rush of shame as their words cut deep, stirring memories of her past where she had been told she wasn't enough. She glanced at Takoda, who remained unfazed by the hostility directed at him. "I am not here to harm anyone," he responded firmly. "I help her find refuge and healing." The settlers scoffed at his declaration, their mindset in outdated beliefs about natives and settlers never mixing amicably. Angry remarks flew back and forth as Sarah felt caught between two worlds, her old life pushing against the new life she hoped to build with Takoda. "Why can't they see what we have?" Sarah finally said aloud, tears filling her eyes as frustration bubbled inside her. Takoda placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Not all will understand our bond or this journey we are on," he said gently. "But we must focus on our path, not theirs." After some tension-filled moments, the settlers eventually dispersed, leaving Sarah feeling shaken but also empowered by Takoda's presence beside her. They walked in silence for a while after that confrontation, the weight of misunderstandings hung between them. Once alone again in the peaceful woods, Sarah took a deep breath and turned to Takoda. "Thank you for standing up for me," she said earnestly. "It was my honor," he replied sincerely. "Our connection is strong enough to weather these challenges." As they resumed their journey deeper into the forest, Sarah realized that facing opposition together only strengthened their bond further. Every trial they encountered fortified her resolve to embrace this new chapter with Takoda by her side, the gentle warrior who saw beyond prejudices and welcomed love amidst adversity. As time flowed gently by in the wilderness, Sarah found herself transforming in ways she had never imagined. Under Takoda's patient guidance and kindness, she began to unravel the layers of fear that had long encased her heart. Each day brought new lessons not just about survival in the wild but also about trust and healing. One morning, they trekked to a nearby stream where crystal-clear water danced over smooth stones. Takoda looked at Sarah, his expression warm as he said, "Today, we will learn how to catch fish. It requires patience and trust." Skeptical yet curious, Sarah watched as he demonstrated how to create a makeshift fish trap using simple branches and vines. She marveled at how effortlessly he moved, his confidence radiating from him like sunshine. With each step of the process, he encouraged her with gentle words, "You can do this. Trust in yourself." Though apprehensive at first, Sarah felt something stir within her, a flicker of belief that perhaps she could indeed be capable. With Takoda by her side offering support instead of criticism, she felt safe to try. Together they constructed the trap and placed it in the water, a shared silent hope hanging between them as they waited. As the minutes passed, Sarah found herself talking more freely with Takoda about her past and dreams for the future. The more she spoke, the lighter she felt. She shared memories from her childhood, a time when laughter echoed through the house before life became heavy with Thomas's anger. "Sometimes I think I can hear that laughter still," she admitted wistfully. Takoda listened intently as she spoke of her fears and dreams for a fresh start filled with possibilities. "You are not defined by your past," he reminded her gently. "Every day is an opportunity to shape who you want to become." Finally, when they returned to check on their trap later that afternoon, joy surged through Sarah as they discovered fish caught within it. "We did it," she exclaimed with awe. "Yes," Takoda said with a proud smile. "You trusted yourself today." That evening, as they shared their catch over a fire under a blanket of stars, Sarah felt a sense of belonging blossoming in her heart, a feeling she hadn't known for far too long. Each moment spent with Takoda was like stitching together pieces of her fractured spirit, his kindness forged pathways toward trust that were slowly mending what once felt irreparably broken. In those quiet evenings filled with laughter and stories shared under starlit skies, Sarah realized that healing wasn't just about escaping her past, it was about embracing who she was becoming, with Takoda's gentle support guiding her forward into a brighter future together. As the days turned into weeks, life in the wilderness began to feel like a dream for Sarah, but shadows of the past lingered at the edges of her new reality. One afternoon, while gathering firewood, she stumbled upon a familiar sight, a narrow trail leading back toward her old settlement. Her heart raced, torn between the safety of her past and the uncertain promise of her future with Takoda. The temptation to return was whispering to her, echoing memories of the home she once knew. Would Thomas have changed? Was he searching for her? The thought filled her with dread, yet a part of her longed for the familiarity of daily life, even if it came with pain. Later that evening, as they sat beside the warm glow of the fire, Takoda noticed her distant gaze. "What troubles you?" he asked gently, his voice soft as the breeze that floated through the trees. Caught off guard, Sarah hesitated before answering. "I found a path leading back to my old life," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "Sometimes, I wonder if I made the right choice by leaving." Takoda's eyes searched hers, filled with understanding. It is natural to feel conflicted. Change can be frightening, even when it leads to healing. Sarah looked into the flames, watching them dance and flicker as her thoughts swirled. "But what if I return? What if I can make things better?" "Sometimes, returning means stepping back into a cage," he replied softly. "You have discovered a new strength within yourself. You deserve to embrace it fully." Feeling a rush of emotion, Sarah felt overwhelmed by his words. She wanted to believe in herself and this new life they were building together, but doubt clouded her heart like a storm. Memories of fear and anger from her marriage with Thomas surged forth, reminding her of why she had fled in the first place. "What if I'm not strong enough to stay away?" she whispered. Takoda leaned closer, offering her his unwavering presence. "You are already stronger than you know. Your journey is not just about escaping, it is about discovering who you truly are." A wave of relief washed over Sarah as she recognized Takoda's faith in her. Could she really choose this new path? That night, under a blanket of stars, Sarah contemplated her decision. It was time to confront her fears head-on. She realized that embracing her future with Takoda meant letting go of the past entirely. With newfound resolve blooming in her heart, she whispered to the night, "I choose to stay." The weight of uncertainty lifted slightly as hope illuminated the path ahead, a path leading not only to freedom but also to love, healing, and acceptance in a world where she belonged. In the days that followed Sarah's decision to stay with Takoda, a sense of renewed purpose enveloped her like the warm rays of the sun breaking through the trees. Embracing her new life, she started to see the world around her with fresh eyes. Each day was now an opportunity for growth and discovery. The wilderness no longer seemed daunting, instead, it felt alive with promise. Together, Sarah and Takoda created a home within the embrace of nature. They built a small shelter near the stream where they had once caught fish together, gathering wood and leaves to make it cozy and inviting. Their shared laughter echoed through the trees as they worked side by side, each moment reinforcing their bond. Sarah found joy in simple tasks, cooking over the fire, tending to small gardens of herbs and vegetables, and learning from Takoda about the plants that healed and nourished. With every passing day, Sarah began to shed the remnants of her past. Fear and self-doubt transformed into strength and resilience. Takoda's unwavering support allowed her to confront memories of Thomas without being consumed by them. Instead of feeling trapped by her history, she learned to use those experiences as stepping stones toward who she wanted to become. One particular evening, while watching the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Sarah turned to Takoda, her heart brimming with gratitude. "Thank you for believing in me," she said sincerely. "I've never felt this free before." Takoda smiled warmly at her. "You have always had this strength within you, Sarah. I simply helped you uncover it." His words filled her with warmth, a reminder that healing was not just about escaping but embracing one's own potential. As nighttime deepened around them, they sat close together by the fire, sharing stories under a blanket of stars. that night felt different. It was no longer just an escape from an abusive past but a celebration of a hopeful future filled with love and acceptance. Sarah realized she was not just moving away from something, she was moving toward something beautiful. With Dakota by her side, she understood that life could be filled with joy, laughter, and companionship, elements she thought were lost forever. In that moment of clarity, Sarah understood that this new chapter was not only about finding refuge but also about creating a life defined by her own choices and desires. It was a fresh start away from pain, a blossoming relationship that promised both love and healing. With hope rekindled in her heart, she embraced each day ahead as another step toward a brighter future filled with endless possibilities alongside Dakota, the gentle warrior who had shown her how to truly live again.